the share come up? Let me see in 1 second. Share didn't pop up. Let me go back. There we go. The screen is paused, but let's see here. There we go. Voila. So you should see the first slide. All right, there we are. Good.
Now, I was just going to ask you to take off that left hand where they could see the next slide. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we're here. Good. And well, going back to my topic, a reason asking these questions before I go through the slides here, is it too much? Because I'm not quite sure how much time did you want for this? Because I have multiple slides that I can dwindle it all the way down to 30 or some. And I said, all right, I'm going to keep everything, but what's your thoughts? What are your thoughts?
An hour.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
That would be your max. If it takes you 40 minutes to do that, that's fine. That's fine. I'm sure there's going to be questions because Social Security is so easy to understand. I'm being sarcastic. I'm sure there's going to be questions. And I did send you that list of questions.
Yep, I love those questions. And they're great. And as soon as I saw those questions, I know what I have in this presentation. And again, this is one of my larger presentations. I normally don't do this much. However, this is my first time of giving this information to your society. And I want to make sure that, because those families, from my experience, those families juggle a lot. So they don't always have time to contact Social Security or get information. So my mindset was put a lot out there. They may not get it all at once, but they'll have the resource. So they'll be able to go back and then be able to view this and see that I had information. I didn't want to leave certain things out and then they'll go, well, what about this? So I at least put it all in there. And today, and you're going to hear me say it during the recording, what have you, I'm not going to harp on every single word and every topic on the screen. I'm going to highlight information.
Okay. That's perfectly fine.
That'll get me within that time frame, and then also open it up to see if there are additional questions after they viewed the information.
Sure, and the detailed information will come with the questions, I'm sure. So.
Correct, exactly.
Okay, all right, I'm going to take back host.
Mm-hmm.
Nope, that's not what I want.
So I have to stop first, I think.
There we go.
Mm-hmm. Good.
Now this starts at 1. So I'm going to mute myself because people will be coming into the room between now and 1. And then around 1 o'clock, I'll give them a minute or so and tell them we'll start then. And then I'll start in, and I'm going to introduce myself and tell them what's coming up at the Autism Society in the next week. And then I'll introduce you, and I'll let you know when it's time to go.
Great. And again, as far as the hour, let's say we're at, I'm making this up, so you can see we're at the 50-minute mark. Are you going to wave or do anything, or are we okay? So if I'm still talking at 55 minutes, are you still okay? Because some individuals have a Zoom account that's going to close down, or if you have certain type of constraints and like, okay, Robert, you got to stop right at 60 minutes. So I just want to make sure we're okay.
I'm just going to black out that whole square of you. No, you keep going. I've allowed for enough Zoom time that they're not going to cut any of us off. So
we're okay there. Okay, good.
Okay?
All right. And then when we get to the end,
before I mute myself?
No, because then at the end, then you're going to come back on. And then I'll just transfer it to you, and I'll say, Wendy's here to see what questions we have in the chat. And then you can read those questions that were sent in if I don't answer them, or we can read whatever we have.
I'll do that.
All right.
See you in a few.
See ya.
Hello, everybody. If you're here to hear the presentation about SSI and SSDI, you're in the right place. We'll start in about 2 or 3 minutes till everybody gets in the room. So relax until then. Good afternoon, everybody. This is the presentation about SSI and SSDI. We're going to give whoever is straggling out there 1 or 2 more minutes to join the audience, and then we'll get started. Okay, good afternoon. My name is Wendy Klein. I am the support specialist at the Akron, the Autism Society of Greater Akron here in Akron, Ohio. Before we get started, I wanted to let you know of 2 special events that are happening through the Autism Society as of July. The first is a continuation of our future planning series. It will be a presentation by Andy Brennan from Disability Rights Ohio. He's an attorney with them, and he'll be speaking about guardianship and power of attorney, the differences, and why some of our individuals with disabilities might need either one of those. So that's July 7th, and that's a 7 p.m. start. Secondly, last weekend, we had our Summit County Walk into Autism. We had a lot of fun, and there were a lot of people there to participate in the activities that we had and to network with the other resource providers. We had so much fun, we're going to do it again. We're going to do it in Stark County on August the 13th from 10 to 1. It will be at the McKinley Monument in Canton, Ohio. So keep your eyes on our website, autismakron.org, and you'll see more details about those 2 activities. I would like to introduce to you Robert Fenn. Robert is a wonderful speaker. He comes highly recommended, and you're going to learn a lot today. Mr. Fenn has been a part of the Social Security Administration since 1999. He was promoted to Public Affairs Specialist in 2008 at the Akron office downtown. His outreach in media relations and public presentations cover 8 counties and includes WHBC, WAKR Radio, the Akron Beacon Journal, Senior Forum, and Wadsworth Television. He's married and has 2 adult children. So I'd like to introduce now Mr. Robert Fenn. If you have any questions, I would recommend that you put them in the chat, and we'll look at them after the presentation.
Right. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. I'm going to pull up my PowerPoint to get us started here. At least that way I can make sure you have a better visual instead of looking at my face. So here we go. Here we go. Great. And with a thumbs up, Wendy, can you let me know you see my first screen? Great. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Again, my name is Robert Fenn. I'm the Public Affairs Specialist with the Social Security Administration. I should say a Public Affairs Specialist because there are other individuals who are in the state of Ohio do the same thing that I do in terms of outreach to the public. As Wendy stated, I'm going to talk about Social Security disability and SSI. I believe it's a topic that I should cover. Why? Because people mix them up all the time. You can ask an individual and say, hey, does your child or do you receive SSI benefits? And I'll get a solid yes. And then I'll say, well, how much is it? Well, it's $1,500. I'll go, $1,500? I don't think the SSI check is that high. Oh, well, that's what I thought I applied for. I don't know what I applied for. I get those scenarios. Or I have a parent who said, I wanted to apply, but there's something about income, so it stopped my child from being eligible. That's why we're going to talk about Social Security disability today, to clear up some things on how an individual becomes eligible for those payments, what are the differences between Social Security disability and SSI, supplemental security income. I'm going to cover those things. Can a person work and still receive those payments? If I get one, can I get the other? Those are things that I'm going to cover in this presentation. With that being said, that's a lot of information. So I'm going to bring to you certain slides and I'm going to cover those topics, but each slide that you're going to be shown, I'm not going to cover every single nook and cranny on it. One reason is it'll take us all day. Two, this is during the lunch period of time. My stomach may grovel time to time, so I need to make sure that I get us in and out. At the same time, give you enough information to make you feel and believe, though, okay, I have a better foundation in terms of an understanding of Social Security. So that's my goal here, not to cover every intricate part of it, but at least to give you enough so that way you can say, can I make a more sound decision and am I better educated on those programs of Social Security disability and SSI? So here we go. Something that I should share with you in terms of our office, the local field offices. We are now receiving walk-in traffic since April 7th of 2022. Due to the coronavirus, our offices, we were not receiving without scheduled appointments, a walk-in traffic. Now you can call our 800 number, 772-1213 to set up an appointment. My suggestion, regardless of your reason for contacting the Social Security office, call first to ensure that it is something that maybe we can answer over the phone or make an appointment. Why am I saying that? Because things aren't the same as they were prior to the pandemic. Prior to the pandemic, you could walk into the office, you would take a seat, wait till the next individual was to call you. Now, if someone walks into our office, we're going to look to see if it's something we can assist you with quickly, or if it's something that may need an appointment. We still understand that there's still a pandemic taking place, and our population that we serve, our customers, there's high health vulnerabilities there. So we need to make sure that we're still mindful of that. So you could walk into our office and maybe you're requesting a Social Security card. We will say that may be something that we can handle quickly. That person may go to a window. The next individual may say, I'm here because unfortunately I did not receive my payment. That may be an emergency situation that we could possibly look into that. That person may be seated. The next person says, I'm here to file for retirement benefits or disability payments. That person may be given an appointment so that way we would contact them on a later date via the phone. So I'm just saying to you that way, just be aware of that. And the easiest way for you to be properly prepared to what documents may be needed if you're going to stay in the office, or if you're going to have to contact us at a later date, call the 800 number, 772-1213. Speak of phone numbers, and calls. Some of you may have received those phone calls where someone says they are from some federal agency, or in this case here, Social Security Administration, and they will tell you that if you don't take action, your Social Security number is going to be suspended. If you don't take action by sending them money and going to some box store and putting information on a gift card, money on a gift card, and then calling them back, that is not Social Security. So please be aware of that there are scams taking place where individuals trying to obtain information. I, unfortunately, even though I work for Social Security, I received that phone call multiple times. Let me make sure I clear that up. Not unfortunately that I work for Social Security, but the fact that I received those phone calls multiple times. And so it doesn't even matter. You know, I'm the Social Security guy, right? The audacity, they still call. So be aware of those phone calls, that Social Security will never scare you or give you any type of a threat that they're going to suspend your Social Security number, which is something that we cannot do. Be aware of those things. We do mail letters out informing people that we want to speak to you. Now, if you also contacted us first, you set up an appointment, then that would be the reason why we're contacting you. So just be aware of those things. If you get one of those phone calls, just hang up. You know, if you wish, you can, and we suggest that you can contact oig.ssa.gov at the bottom of the screen here, officeinspectorgeneral.ssa.gov, in order to make that report that you received that phone call. They will want to know certain things like, when did they call? How did they sound? What did they ask for? Those are the things that you want to be mindful of so that way you can make a proper report. Thank you. Now, let's get into the program itself. There are two different disability programs that the Social Security Administration administers. You have on your left-hand side, Social Security Disability, and on your right-hand side, SSI. Those laws are called Title II, Title 16. On your left-hand side, Social Security Disability is tied with Medicare. On your right-hand side, SSI, Supplemental Security Income, is tied with Medicaid. Medicaid is administered through Job and Family Services. Two separate programs, Social Security Disability and SSI. However, both of them are ran and administered through the Social Security Administration. So that's why you can hear, that's the beginning part. Sometimes people get them mixed up because they both are done, taken care of, and addressed through the Social Security Administration, but they're separate, and I'm going to show you how. Both programs, we're going to look at a definition to determine whether or not a person is disabled. I'm bringing this definition up first and foremost because your job can have a different definition of disability. Job and Family Services, Workman's Comp, VA, other places, the Veteran Administration may have a different definition than Social Security. For Social Security, we're going to look at the individual, do they have an impairment that's severe, a condition that could last a year? Doesn't mean the person has to wait a year. It just means could the condition last a year or result in death, okay? The person's condition must prevent them from going back to work. Social Security disability is there because an individual has to stop working before they reach their retirement age. You know, Social Security retirement, that's a different presentation, but there are different full retirement ages. Retirement benefits start at age 62. What if a person becomes disabled before 62? And a person can file for Social Security disability up to their full retirement age. For some individuals, their full retirement age to get the full benefit amount is at age 66 and 2 months. Well, what if a person can no longer work before they get to that full retirement age? That's why we have Social Security disability. Social Security disability, of course, is for anyone who is disabled or blind. And as you can see on the screen here, those who are younger than the full retirement age and they've earned a certain amount of credits. A way in which at least it helps me to understand it, is that similar to your car insurance, as long as you are paying your car insurance and you get into a car accident, then they're going to say you are covered. If you go a period of time in which you have not made any payments to that car insurance, they're going to say recently you have not paid anything. So what is it that they're looking for in terms of your payments? Well, every year, Social Security has a dollar amount. We call them credits. Those credits are transferred into what we call a FICA tax. So the Federal Insurance Contribution Act, this year in 2022, if a person works and they make at least $1,510 gross, they earn 1 credit. You can get as many as 4 of those credits every year. So we can do the math. There's a little bit of math here. 4 times 1510 is $6,040. If a person has made at least $6,040, they have earned the amount of credits needed for that year, in this year, 2022. And as I just mentioned here, we have a recent work test and a duration of work test. Have you paid into Social Security? And were you doing it recently? Something that I want to point out, I hear often people will say, I cannot be working and file for Social Security disability payments, or SSI. That is not true totally, meaning that there's a dollar amount which Social Security looks at to see if we continue the process. That dollar amount is what we classify as substantial gainful activity, SGA, substantial gainful activity. In 2022, that dollar amount is $1,350. If a person wishes to file for Social Security disability payments, we will ask that question, are you working now? And if that person is underneath, let's say that $1,350, they're making $1,000 gross per month, that person still can apply. And if you want to push and prod a little bit, yes, technically, any person can apply if they believe that they have a condition that's going to last a year. But we are going to look at the beginning of that application, the SGA, substantial gainful activity. The SGA amount does increase, or it's higher for individuals who are blind. You can see on the screen here, the bottom right side, $2,260 if the individual is blind. If they're not, then that dollar amount is $1,350. How do we figure it out? Based upon your work history. And I'm bringing this topic up in front of you because I want to make sure I give you the beginning as well as maybe during the course of someone receiving Social Security disability, because we're basing upon the work history. Your other income and resources, that has no effect at all. So a person could have, I'm making this up as an example, 3 cars, 2 homes, $5,000 in the bank. None of that affects Social Security disability, okay? We do adjust their Social Security payments based upon if we have a cost of living adjustment, but we're going to figure out what they're eligible for based upon their work history. So when they work, that determines how much the Social Security check is going to be. I say that because there are some individuals who will contact us and say they were approved for a certain disability. I'll just give an example. They were approved because they had a bad back. There was a severe injury. Then, unfortunately, time passes and they are diagnosed with another condition. Let's say it's cancer. People will contact us thinking because they are now diagnosed with cancer, they can recontact us and see if that changes their dollar amount for their payment. That does not change because it's not based upon the type of condition. The payment is based upon the fact that they work and how much they have worked. Their earnings determine how much the Social Security check could be. If the person is approved, they submit an application, there is a 5-month waiting period for most individuals to when they receive that payment. So I'm going to offer an example. And you see here, let's say someone has what we call a disability onset. That's when the doctors get together and then they say, okay, this is when they believe that condition became so severe. So the example I'm sharing with you is June 15, 2019. The first benefit payable will be the month of December, paid in January. So June was the month that the disability onset date began. So we have July, August, September, October, November. December is the month that that benefit is payable. December's check is paid in January. Okay, Social Security is, in most cases, is 30 days behind for Social Security retirement and for disability payments. So December is the month paid in January. That 5-month waiting period is for every individual, except if there's a certain condition that they may meet. SSI may be paid during that 5-month waiting period. So if someone is approved with the onset date of June, we're going to look at their income and the resources, which I'm going to go over shortly here. And we will look to see could we send them any monies for that July, August, September, October, November, and December month? Family benefits. So if someone's receiving a Social Security payment, their family members are also potentially eligible. The spouse could be eligible if the spouse is at least age 62. So we have one individual who's receiving a Social Security disability payment at whatever age they are, but they are married, and and that spouse is at least age 62. We're going to look at that spouse's work history to see if whether or not they are eligible for more money on their own versus if they're eligible as a spouse of someone who's receiving a disability payment. The next one is here is a little bit different. It says at any age if caring for a child underneath the age of 16. So here you have, let's say one spouse is age 56. They are married to someone who is age 56 as well. Between the two, they have a child who's 15, right? So in this case here, this 56-year-old may also be eligible because there's a child in the household underneath the age of 16. Now we're going to speak to this other spouse, and we're going to ask them whether or not they are working, and their salary determines how many months throughout the year we can send them a payment. Now, why am I bringing up the spouse situation? It's just kind of humorous, but for Social Security, we ask that question. And when I ask the question, I think I should receive a yes or no answer. That question, have you ever been married? But sometimes we get a little pause in their response. Have you ever been married? I don't know why there's a pause, but some people tend to hold back on that. Social Security's role is to make sure that if you're eligible for a payment, that you receive the payment and the family members are also potentially eligible. We're not trying to pry. It's actually a way of which we're going to be able to do some fact finding to see who else may be eligible for payment. Speaking of which, the next one, this clause, have been known, and I said that it's, I call it my Elizabeth Taylor or Mickey Rooney clause, but Paul McCartney's on the list, Neil Diamond's on the list, and Halle Berry's on the list. But she's on it just because she's Halle Berry. That's it. That's for anyone who's been married for at least 10 years. If you've been married for at least 10 years, you are also potentially eligible as an ex-spouse. So you have one individual who's applied for Social Security disability. That person was married for 15 years. Well, now that ex-spouse may be eligible on the first spouse's record if the ex-spouse, in my example, is at least age 62. And they were married for at least 10 years. My example was 15 years. Now, if the ex-spouse was to have gotten remarried and still married to that second person, they're no longer eligible on the first person. If they were to divorce the second person and they were married to that second person for more than 10 years, Social Security has to compare where the higher payment, not payments, the payment could go from. So what a tangled web we have weaved. I'm just giving you that information to let you know this is why Social Security will ask that question. Have you ever been married or are you currently married? The next bullet point here says children are also eligible. Children are eligible on mom or dad's record. If mom or dad is receiving a Social Security disability payment and that child is age 18 and still in high school, or age 19 and still in high school, let's say if the kid started school a little bit later, or they were born later in the year, late September, October, and started school later, that Social Security check could possibly go to age 19. So in short, what you're looking at is individuals are potentially eligible. Now, the bottom bullet point here is what if mom or dad is receiving a Social Security disability payment and they have a child and the child has a disability and the child's disability started before the child was age 22. We take one application for mom or dad, we take a separate application for the child. Now, the difference is, in this case here, if mom or dad is receiving Social Security disability and the child has a disability, if the child has a disability, that Social Security check will continue for life. The first option that you see right above that, if the child, it says not married underneath the age of 18, that Social Security check will stop for that child who's not disabled once they graduate from high school. I'll keep us moving. I'm being very selfish because if I'm gonna talk about family, I'm gonna share my family with you real quickly here. So in the back seat there, on your left-hand side, the young lady with the brownish part coloring in her hair, that is my youngest daughter. She just graduated from Ohio State University, the Ohio State University. And her major was kinesiology and sports management and Spanish. She said that she can have a great career out of it. I said, what is that gonna do? She showed me her list of salaries. I said, okay, all right, I'll leave you alone. I love you. The next young lady there, this is my zoologist to be. She also graduated and now she works in the zoo and she loves to work with animals. So I'm proud of her. She was a biology major. And the lady to your left, my right in the picture, this lady here, that's my wife. And I guess I can say her major is me because she reads me like a book all the time. So just being selfish, that's my family right there. Moving on, as I showed you that red and the blue pill there, there's Social Security disability and there's tied with Medicare. Medicare starts 24 months after an individual has been eligible for their Social Security disability payments, 24 months, 2 years later. 2022, that Medicare Part B premium is $170.10. There are different parts of Medicare, A, B, C, and D. A covers when you go inside of the hospital. Part B is the doctor's visits. That Part B has a premium. Part A does not, Part B does. That $170.10 in 2022 is deducted from the Social Security cash payment. If an individual is looking for assistance to have that $170.10 paid for, they can contact Job and Family Services and see if they're eligible for a qualified Medicare buy-in. As you can see, there's different ones and different tiers for their buy-in programs at Job and Family Services. You can use the link that I'm sending you on the site. It says insurance.ohio.gov and look for Medicare Savings Programs information. Now I'm going to speak about SSI. I just gave you Social Security disability. An individual has worked. That work has allowed them to be eligible for a certain amount of money. Social Security disability is tied to that FICA tax. Social Security disability, family members are also potentially eligible. Now we're going to Social Security, to SSI benefits. SSI benefits is based upon limited income and few resources. The example I gave you earlier, I said an individual could have had 3 cars, and the homes, what have you. That's Social Security disability. SSI, we do have to look at the individual's income and their resources. SSI is for anyone who's at least age 65, right? Just because of their age, or totally blind, or partially, and has a medical condition, just as I mentioned earlier, that lasts or could last a year. The SSI maximum payment this year is $841 in 2022. Income that comes into place for SSI benefits, we're going to look at if they're working, that's their wages, any net income from self-employment, any payments from the workshops. On your right-hand side, you see unearned. So we have earned income and unearned income. Unearned income is from Social Security benefits. That's going to be considered unearned. VA benefits, unemployment, any interest, those are unearned income that we would look at to determine how much their SSI payment will be. We also look at their resources, savings, bank accounts, stocks, bonds, 401ks. If they had a second car, we kind of, to help people understand it, sometimes I say to individuals, you could have 1 Porsche and 1 mansion, no issue. But that second Porsche and that other mansion, that's going to be the issue. Those are the things that are going to count as a resource. So it's not the current home that a person's living in, it's that they have an additional. So you see on the right-hand side, excluded resources, home in which you live. The first car and their home, no issue. It's the additional. Burial plots may be excluded and some resources outside of that burial as well. And I'll talk a little bit more about the able accounts you see on the left-hand side, right-hand side. Here we are. Now, here we have able accounts, Achieving a Better Experience Act. What is that? This allows individuals to kind of take advantage of the fact of a tax advantage savings, kind of like a 529 college plan. They can have a certain amount of money, up to $100,000 saved, that will still have no effect on their SSI payment. In Ohio, we call them stable accounts. So I'm encouraging you, if you're thinking about saving a certain amount of monies to cover for your housing or healthcare or transportation, that money that you're saving toward that can be placed into that stable account and again, not affect the SSI payment. So in Ohio, you can look at it, you can Google it and then pull up stable accounts and you can have more information about that. I'm just making sure I'm sharing that with you. What about the application process? So let's go over that. Individuals can contact Social Security via our website, socialsecurity.gov. You can complete the application that way. If you do so, I'm encouraging you to also, you'll see it, and I'll show you in a second here. You can complete the application for Social Security disability, and you're going to get a question asking, do you also want to apply for SSI? Check yes. By doing so, it pulls up that SSI application. So that way we can see if you are or you're not eligible for those resources for SSI based upon your income and your resources. Another option, you can call the 800 number that I shared with you a moment ago, 1-800-772-1213. They will ask for your zip code, and that will determine which local office is going to contact you. The easiest way, the people ask me, well, what's the easiest and sound way for me to do so? That's going online to our website, socialsecurity.gov. One of the reasons and most important reasons is that when you're stepping to something new and you're like, okay, how do I apply for these benefits? I want to make sure I'm doing it right. This puts the option right in your hands. By you going to our website, socialsecurity.gov, it allows you to see all the information that we're asking, and you're certain that the information that's on your side of the table is placed into that claim, right? Because you have taken the time to put that information in. We draw those applications in. We still will contact you to complete it, but you know that every doctor that you've spoken about, that you've seen, is listed on that claim. This is a snapshot of our webpage. You will see on the right-hand side, you see the little red box around that tile. You can click on there, and that will start the procedure for filing online for Social Security disability payments. And again, I'm sharing with you the phone numbers that were listed here, the national number for you to contact us, and you can go to the local office. Again, as I said earlier, if you were to walk in, more than likely they're going to ask for you to get an appointment. So it behooves you to just call first the 800 number 772-1213. You see that theme, how I keep repeating that number there? All claims are screened for both Social Security disability and SSI. Often I get the question, people say, well, I was getting SSI. Do I need to go back and get SSD? I was getting SSD, but I didn't get SSI. Any person who files for Social Security disability benefits, we're going to look to see their income and their resources to see if they're eligible for that, for both of them. Some people do get a denial notice real quick, and they're thinking, I just applied, how is it that I'm getting a notice? So since we received the application for Social Security disability and SSI, and we ask whether or not the person has income and resources, they may get a decision in regards to the SSI payment saying that they're not eligible because of income. The person has worked, they apply for Social Security disability because they can no longer work or they believe their condition is going to last a year. They have, making up a number, $5,000 inside of the bank account. That $5,000 may make them ineligible for SSI. We receive the total application. We continue that application, sending it down to our for review. I'll share with you all about that source, but they may get a decision mailed back to them saying they're not eligible for SSI. Many people may think that, okay, are you saying that they decided already I'm not disabled? No, they're saying you're not eligible based upon the income and resource guidelines for SSI. What if you're helping someone and you want to help them apply for their benefits, and you may need to interact or have communication with Social Security? There's some forms I want to make sure I share with you. The SSA 3228, the SSA 3228 is a consent form. The easiest way for you to understand that between the next form is an SSA 1696. The 1696 allows an individual to go through a process. Your mom or dad is applying, for a son or daughter or husband or wife, whatever it may be, and you're going to need to continually communicate with us on an ongoing basis. The 3288 is more like an individual needing to handle one issue, one time. That's it, right? 3288, I need information to try to help them out, change their phone number. 3288, I'm going to help them apply for Social Security disability benefits, and there's going to need for me to contact different doctors or get information or submitting medical documentation. That may need 1696. Maybe the individual's an attorney or what have you. That's what they're going to use as the appointed representative. If someone is a legal guardian, we do have to work and communicate with that legal guardian throughout the process, make them aware. But by having a legal guardianship does not mean they have total control of the process, but we just need to be aware of that because there's certain things that we have to disclosed to them. POA, power of attorney. Power of attorney is not honored by Social Security because there's different types of power of attorney. You know, maybe it's medical, maybe it's financial. We have to have a term called representative payee. That is the way in which we're going to communicate, and we know who you are, and we have, quote unquote, vetted you to determine whether or not you can be the proper individual to handle communications between Social Security and yourself, and you're going to be responsible for handling their affairs, their financial affairs with Social Security. Again, POA is a document that we may say, yes, we want to see it to supplement our reason to become a representative payee, but it does not mean that we're going to use your documents in order to communicate with Social Security. The medical decision is done again in Columbus, Ohio. Opportunities for Ohioans with disabilities, or formerly known as DDD, or Disability Determination Services, or DDD, Division of Disability Determination. This is the source which we send all the information in. The local office does not make the decision that a person is or is not approved for their Social Security disability or SSI payments. We submit the application, get sent down to Columbus, and most cases are decided within 120 days. Now, with that being said, I want to make sure I pause because I've had multiple people say, well, isn't it true that you're going to be denied on the first time? That is not true. I'm not certain who started that rumor, but we're going to talk to that person. But the thing that I want to make sure I emphasize is that, and this is coming from the DDS and the Ohioans with disabilities, many of the cases, 33 to 37% of them are approved the first time. There's 67 some percent, whatever, that may be denied. Now, why is that? Well, some of the applications aren't completed correctly. We have to receive all the information in a timely time frame. So that could be it. And being honest, some individuals may not be disabled. Sometimes an individual is encouraged to apply because their employer wanted them to, in order for the employer to pay that employee sick pay, right? There's different reasons why. So yes, it is possible for an individual to be denied, which I'm going to cover that in a moment here. But many individuals are also approved. So that is not true that individuals are just denied the first time. Something else I should add on here, it says at the bottom of the screen, we will send evidence provided by a claimant with the electronic file to Columbus. For those of you who are parents, I want to encourage you to know that it's not just the doctor's information that the DDS is looking to receive. Your communication is also just as important. You as a parent, you see your child, or you as a spouse, you see your spouse with the changes that they're going through. An example could be this spouse used to go out every single Wednesday for a bowling event. Now they no longer like to be around crowds, right? That's something that you can note. My point is, you can write that information down, and your observations are just as important in this decision, that you can submit this application as well as your documentation of what you've seen with your loved one or child as well, and submit it to that with the application so that we can make a better picture of what you are seeing for this DDS to evaluate. If you're approved, when it makes a decision, you'll get a letter telling the individual what you are approved for, Social Security disability, SSI, and the amount, and when the payments will start. Now, I'm going to sound a little bit selfish when I say this. People do contact us and say, hey, well, how much am I getting? That information is mailed out to you. Well, when do I get it? That information is on that same letter. They will receive that information. If they're not approved, you can appeal, but keep in mind, as you see in the bottom of the screen, I underlined it, 60 days. A person can appeal, but it has to be done within 60 days. You can now submit this appeal online. Prior years, you had to mail in a letter or give us a call, right? Now you can do so online at the socialsecurity.gov website. The stages for the appeal, you have 60 days again. If someone wants to appeal that, they go to a reconsideration. If that is denied, they go to administrative law judge. If that is denied, that can go through the appeals council. If that is denied, it goes through U.S. District Court. We're not going to go over all of those things today. I'm just letting you know there is a process for the appeals. Let's speak positive. Claim is approved. If a person is receiving SSI payments and that claim is approved, there's going to be a follow-up interview. we're going to follow with that individual just to see if the income and the resources guidelines are still being met. Are they the same as when the person applied for their payments? The maximum amount for SSI this year, again, is $841. And we're going to look to see if there's any countable income that could affect that. Shortly here, I'm going to share with you how we factor if someone has additional income as well as having that SSI payment. Living arrangements. If someone's receiving an SSI payment, we're going to look to see who's all in the household, right? It could be other parents. It could be the person's living alone. If the individual's incarcerated, those payments are not, in most cases, are going to be sent to them. They're going to be eligible. If it's a child, is the child living with their mom or dad? Or is the child living in another household? That changes the living arrangement. That could change the payment amount. There are a lot of things that could change the payment amount. So I'm not going to take you through all these things, but I can see your eyes, you know, oh, okay, look at all this on the screen here. But these are things that we do need to be made aware of if someone's receiving an SSI payment, not SSD, the SSI payment. If they move, if they change schools, if there's a change in the resources, they did have a bank account, all the money now is no longer in that bank account. They spend it, you know, on medical expenses or whatever it may be. That's something they're going to need to keep us aware of. So there's a list of things which you can go to our website, socialsecurity.gov. You can look up the at the bottom of that screen, we have publications. You can click on that link and there's a booklet called What You Need to Know When You Get SSI Benefits. You can click on that. All of these things are going to be there for you. That's right on our website, socialsecurity.gov, underneath publications. Other requirements. What if you're applying for a benefit for a child, right? We're going to look to see if the child, again, is underneath the age of 18, if they have a condition, and notice the word here, it says physical or mental impairment that results in marked or severe limitation in functioning, marked for life, all right? Or if the child is blind or disabled. If the child is blind or disabled, there are different qualifications there. Now, if they are blind or disabled, we do look at them as an adult for their qualifications. If the child is neither married nor head of a household, under the age of 18, or disabled under the age of 22. These are some of the requirements that individuals who are children, applying for children, that we're going to look at. We have something called domains. Imagine categories, right? And what we're going to do is we're going to look to see when the claim gets sent down to for evaluation, we're going to look to see if they're eligible based upon, you can see here the domains: acquiring user information, attending, completing tasks, interacting, relating with others, fine or gross motor, caring for self, health and physical well-being. Example would be some parents, we all of us who are parents, you know, if you were to say, does your child clean his or her room, you know, and then you go, well, what kid does that, right? Well, but how long does it take? You can tell whether or not, is it something that the child is just being a little stubborn, or is there a difficulty in them understanding and processing what you're requesting? Or there's a moment where they're becoming frustrated because they're not able to understand how to properly fold something and place it into the drawer, right? They want to do, but they're not able to. There's a difference there. How do they handle scissors? Are they having trouble with that? Those are little things that could be a difference in determining whether or not a person meets these domains. So that's why I'm saying those things. And I'm saying that because there's literature and information that the DDS is going to send out to you saying, hey, what about this category? And this is what we're asking. This is why we're asking those questions. So that way you understand that you should answer those questions, even though, of course, you may be thinking, no, he hasn't cleaned up his room anytime that I tell him. That's why you want to answer those questions. We will again look at the income for that disabled child. What are things that we call income? Child support, Social Security disability benefits by the parent, or maybe their mother or father passed away and that child is receiving a payment. That's going to count as that unearned income that I mentioned a moment ago here, or if there's any gifts or anything that's given to that child. There's something we call deeming, meaning that if a child is underneath the age of 18, mom or dad's income affects that child in terms of deeming. We look to see if that income, if that child lives at home or with their natural adoptive parents, that income of the parent could affect them. And I'm going to go over what if they're over age 18 in a moment here. Parent and step parent, their income does affect their individual payment. Non-parental income, let's say it's grandparents, what have you, that doesn't affect them. And what I want to suggest, or at least give you a little tidbit, some people want to know, well, I'm not sure what we're eligible for. There's a tool that we have on our website. It's called a BEST tool, BEST, Benefit Eligibility Screening Tool. Any individual can use this. It's not an application. You can simply go in, click on that BEST tool and answer a series of questions, and it'll let you know what programs that person may be eligible for. Is it the SSI? Is it Social Security Disability? Oh, they're not eligible for SSI. We still encourage you to apply for both, but at least so that way you can kind of do some of that background fact checking that we do, and you can do it on this website here through our website, socialsecurity.gov, by looking at the benefit eligibility screening tool. What happens? What if you're a parent who said, I was going to apply or I did apply, but my income, that deeming, affected my child's payment? Well, once a child reaches age 18, there's a new determination. So if a child was receiving an SSI payment, then they turn 18, we're going to do a re-review. We're going to review them to see if they meet the guidelines as an adult, age 18. Or a parent applied and they were denied because of their own income, that deeming. Then when they turn age 18, we're not going to look at the parent's income. We're still going to want to know, where they're living, looking at who's paying for the food and shelter, what have you. The application can be done as early as the day of the 18th birthday. Let me give you the example. So let's say here we have Ryan. Ryan turns age 18, June 22nd. Social Security can process the SSI application anytime from June 1st onward. The earliest to apply without parental income is July 1st. So as of July 1st, we're not going to look at that income from the parent, and we're going to just look at the individual, the 18-year-old as an adult that will be determining their first month of eligibility. If a applicant is a disabled adult child or childhood disability benefits, what this means is that the person that we're speaking to has a disability, and that disability started before their age 22, that individual could possibly file on mother or father's record. So let's say the person is 33 years old. They have a condition that started at the age of birth, or 5, doesn't matter, before age 22. That disabled adult person could look to file on mom or dad's record if mom or dad is receiving Social Security retirement or Social Security disability payments. The thing here that sometimes becomes a little sticky for people is that you have to understand that the person, disabled adult child, childhood disability, must show proof that the condition started before their age 22. So now you're 33, 45 years old, looking to see, can I get documentation that my condition started prior to age 22? That's what makes it a little difficult for those claims. If someone returns to work, they decide to work, which I'm going to go over briefly here, they must contact Social Security to keep us informed of that. Because remember, Social Security disability and SSI means the person can no longer work, right? That's why we need to know if the person does return to work. If they start work and stop again, let us know. We want to know their duties, their hourly pay, any pay changes, got a raise, or maybe they didn't allow you to work as many hours. That can be done through our My Social Security accounts, what I'll show you at the end of this presentation, which we're getting to. Employment supports. We have in place ways and means for individuals to still work without it stopping the Social Security payment. That's very common, a scenario where people want to know, can I work and still get a Social Security disability or SSI payment? The answer is yes. It just depends on what type of payment you're receiving to determine what supports can assist you to continue to receive those payments. The most important, not to say most important, the more common one is our trial work period, TWP. In short, a person can receive Social Security disability, and we will enroll them to a trial work period, and they have 9 months in which they can work and make whatever it wishes before it affects their Social Security disability payment. 9 months. Now, there's a dollar amount that we have, $980. The individual could work and it wouldn't affect them at all. Let's say, for example, someone was to work and they're making $1,000 a month gross. In January, they made $1,000. February, they made $1,000. They had 9 months to do so. So they've already used 2, so they have 7 left. But let's say in March, they only make $300. April, they make $200. So 4 months have went by, but only 2 of those months are going to be held and are subtracted versus the 9 that they were allowed. So they still have the 7 that I mentioned. This is just a generic example of it, so that way at least you can see, okay, this is how the trial work period works. If a person was to make $1,000 every single month for 9 months, they're working over the trial work month. They've used them all. We're going to still give them 2 more payments. And then this case here, the Social Security check would then stop after that. Now, if they're working longer, that's where the SGA, substantial gainful activity, that $1,350 will come into play. Then we're going to say this person is making over SGA. They're not eligible for a check because of the $1,350 amount. That's at the SGA level. If their Social Security check was to stop because of them continuing to work, they have 5 years to recontact Social Security if they have the same condition as prior to see if they can receive those benefits again. We'll submit an application. We'll even give them what we call provisional payments. They'll receive those payments while we're waiting on the decision. If the decision comes back that they're denied, they still do not have to pay back those monies that they received while they were waiting for the decision. If it comes back approved, then the continuance of those payments. I'm not going to go over all of these other employment supports, but I want to make sure I point out a couple of them. I mentioned the trial work period. There's unsuccessful work attempts. There's impairment-related work expenses. We call them IRWs, and the subsidies. So let me quickly go over those here. What is a subsidy? In short, what if you have 2 employees doing the same job in title, but in terms of responsibility, they're different. They're both a cashier, but because the employer recognizes the fact that one individual's condition doesn't allow them to do the same things as the other individual, they may say, we are going to subsidize this and say that you have the same job and title, but you don't have all the same responsibilities. That is something that Social Security is going to look into to determine whether or not they meet or are over that trial work period month that I mentioned to you. What about the IRWs? I just like saying the word, that's all. Impairment-related work expenses. We're going to look at that to determine, are you using X amount of dollars from your pay to see whether or not that extra dollars that you're using can be deducted from your gross to determine whether or not you're underneath the SGA. So here's an example here. Someone is making $1,350. You see, that's the SGA amount, but they have to pay for their medications. Well, that $50 in medications will be deducted from the $1,350, getting them a $1,300 amount. That $1,300 amount is underneath the SGA, so that means that payment could continue without them thinking about it stopping. So that's a good thing. So I'm going to share with you, just on the screen here, you can see what some examples of our IRWs. Transportation costs. If a person has to have a need where someone has to have a specific type of car and they have to have that need to take them to and fro, that individual may be able to expense that transportation cost. Or at the bottom of the screen, as I just mentioned, prescription drugs. Individual has to pay for certain medications so that way they can continue to do the jobs that they have been hired for. Those expenses, those medications could be expended to allow them to work underneath that SGA amount. So this is just some examples that you can share with you. Can you get both Social Security disability and SSI? The answer is yes, it is possible. It just depends on how high your Social Security disability payment is. The maximum amount for SSI is $841. So an example here, what if someone's getting Social Security disability is $600? there's still $241 up to $841. So that person could receive that $241 if they meet the income and the resource guidelines. I'm going to share with you, what if someone works, right? Well, SSA, we don't count all of the earned income when we figure out how much that SSI payment is going to be. We don't count the first 65. So let me quickly go over an example with you. So let's say here you have Jake. Jake is working and he has Social Security disability payments. So let's say the Social Security disability payment is $361. We're going to have a $20 general income exclusion right off the bat. So now that's 361 becomes 341. His 289 is his earned income, right? We're not going to count the first $65 of that. $65 from the 289 is 224. We're not going to count the full 224. We're only going to count half of that. So that gives you the 112. So only 112 is a countable earned income. 341 is the countable unearned income. That would be the Social Security disability. So now we have, you see on the left side here, the 112, 341, 112. 341 and 112, that's $453. The SSI check would have been $841, but we're going to subtract the $453, the total countable income, from the $841, that equals $388. This person would still receive $388 from SSI. So you see on the right-hand side, $361 is a Social Security disability check. They're still working, $289, and they're getting $388 from SSI. Total take-home pay is $1,038. I'm just giving one example of how it does behoove an individual to continue to work. Many people look at it as, because I'm working, they're going to lower my SSI. But in more cases, by that work earnings are going to be higher than what they could have received from SSI. And just being frank, you can't put a dollar amount on the value of just going back to work, how good that makes an individual feel because they're going back to work, interacting and being able to interact with others. So that's a great benefit. This is just an overview, and I'm wrapping up here. SSI versus SSD on your left-hand side. Social Security disability, more than likely is going to be on the 3rd of the month or based upon their birth date. Other individuals are potentially eligible, spouse, family, children. Payments are based upon the earnings that I mentioned, the recent work test and the work test, the FICA tax. On the right-hand side, SSI payments are more likely paid on the 1st of the month. And SSI payments are not based upon their work. It's based upon whether or not they're disabled and their income and their resources. SSI is tied with Medicaid, Social Security disability tied with Medicare. Make sure you check out our website, socialsecurity.gov, and look at that best tool that I mentioned. Also, for yourself as parents or loved ones, if you have not, register for a My Social Security account. See what benefits you may be potentially eligible, or if you're helping someone, you can allow them to go into this website and look at their earnings. You'll answer a series of questions to open this account. And if you're getting a Social Security benefit, you can also get proof of your income. If you're not receiving a payment, you can get proof that you're not receiving a payment, all because of this My Social Security account. This is the starting point if you're thinking about Social Security disability and SSI payments. See what you're potentially eligible for. And if once you're getting that payment, if you need documentation such as an SSA 1099 or even changing a phone number, all can be done through the My Social Security portal. That completes this presentation. I'm going to bring Wendy back in, and I'm going to see if there's any questions I can answer. There's in the chat, or Wendy in her brilliance, she can ask me as well.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Robert. I have a question for you.
Okay.
Without being inappropriate, can I say that SSI in the past was what we would traditionally have called welfare?
That is true. Individuals would say that because technically it was underneath the welfare program. So yes,
okay.
That's safe.
Well, that makes it a lot more understandable about how many assets you have and how easily it could be denied, I guess, because of what you have and what you're earning. Right. Gotcha.
Absolutely.
Okay. We have a question. If SSDI is $600, wouldn't the countable income be only $300, making the SSI $541 instead of $241?
We're going to subtract $300. We're talking about how much they're eligible for the SSI payment. And I think did it say $600?
I don't, yeah, if SSDI is 600
Yeah.
Wouldn't the countable income be only 300, making SSI 541 instead of 241?
No, because that's the unearned income. So they're mixing those two things together. So if it's the $600, we're going to have a $20 exclusion. And so now that gets us to, do the math, $580. If the person was working, that $600, we're going to count half of that. That would make it $300.
Gotcha. Okay. Please, if you have any questions, put them in the chat or the Q&A. We'll be glad to entertain them now.
That's a very good question. And I'm glad they asked that. So that way we could see the differences between that. Great question.
I wanted to let everyone to know too that Robert had a list of questions that were submitted prior to the presentation, and answers were woven in the presentation very eloquently. Are there any more questions?
See here in the chat. I think in the Q&A, okay, we got that one there.
Mhm.
And then in the chat. Okay, here's some in the chat here. I want to pull up here. Would we have access to video recording after the event? It's yes, we may be able to do that. And then yes, the video. Oh, you answer that. So we're good. All right, great.
Yeah. No, that's okay. Yeah, the PowerPoint and the presentation will be available on our website within the next 2 weeks. We have some people going on vacation here and there, and I'm going to give it a 2-week grace. So
Vacation, what is that?
hi.
Yes. And my suggestion before we close out here, I just want to encourage everyone using that BEST tool that I mentioned, Benefit Eligibility Screening 2, and or going to our website, socialsecurity.gov. And if you, I'll do my little Vanna White impersonation here. You see the way we have back here, the socialsecurity.gov. Make sure you check it out, that it's our official website. There are other places that if you just use a search engine and you just type in Social Security, you can get several links. Make sure you look for the one that says .gov for our website, and make sure you have the information prepared in your mind so that way you're better educated on what to understand in terms of what's going to be expected to submit an application for Social Security. And take your time. And if there's anything out of this presentation, I want to make sure that people are taken away from this is that you have the importance of submitting your documentation as well. Many people think, well, I have to have something from the doctor. That's true, but Social Security will offer a doctor as well. But your information from whatever doctor that you have, if you for yourself or for your child, you went to X hospital, that name, yes, we're going to want that. But you can write letters as well. And your information is just as important in terms of the weighting of that decision.
Okay. I want to thank everybody for taking their valuable time out of their day to listen to the presentation. And Robert, again, thank you so much for your time and experience in answering our questions.
It's my pleasure.
Have a great weekend, everybody.
You too. Thank you.
Bye-bye.